a playlist original.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Back to the Blockbuster Presents Deep Dives with Owen and Gaius. This is episode 6, guys.
Episode 6. Your pick finally.
I know my pick finally. It's going to be like a running joke. I finally got to pick one. And from the sounds of it, it's just said it's going to be fun before we started. So I don't know how it's going to go, but it should be a fun one nonetheless. I do want to point out, for the last episode 5, Tucker and Dale versus Evil, it did really, really well. So thank you to everyone that listened to it. I actually got a question about how we market the show that I'm going to talk about later.
Okay.
But every episode is a little different, and this one was the first one I actually promoted on like TikTok a bit and did some more stuff with like videos with that. And we got some traction for that. And I think just because that movie, I guess, is like a underrated gem for
underrated favorite.
Yeah, and a lot of people like that you chose to kind of hype it up and pick it. So I think that's why I did really well.
Nice.
And and also having the main show out that same week too was really good too. So it's a good week for the Back to the Blockbuster team as a whole. So thank you guys for listening.
Let's go. That's awesome to hear.
Yeah, and it's crazy. I mean, it's only episode 6, but it feels like we've been doing this one a bit, but it's fun. It's still really fun, and we're loving getting to do it and like talking about different movies and shouting out different ones. I don't know. Yeah, I think each episode, like, it's been so different, but it's been like a fun, different aspect of like getting to do it, like the way we've approached different movies and how we've talked about them.
Yeah.
I feel like this one's going to be a little different too in the approach and how we talk about it.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be I mean, you were saying that we're only 6 episodes in, and we've had the opportunity to kind of discuss and look into already a bunch of different movies. But before I was trying to see this movie, I actually downloaded Vudu.
Okay.
Sort of like, it's like the Fandango sort of movie app or whatever.
Right.
And I was looking through it just to see if I could find it. 111,000 movies are on Vudu. Just like seeing how many different things are out there. So I think we got a long way to go.
Yeah, we do. That's what. Yeah, we definitely do. And there's like so many. I mean, you got that, and then you have so many other services that offer movies. Like, it's endless possibilities for like what we can pick and watch.
Yeah.
I think that's like the cool thing about this part of the show. It's like it can go anywhere, and we can pick anything, and completely outlandish, completely fun, completely serious. If you need to be. So I think that's the best part about it, is that it's always going to be different and it's never going to be the same. So that's a good thing. It
exactly.
Keeps things interesting. I know that you were out of town over the weekend. Again, out of town.
I know. I was actually I was in Montana doing some skiing. Annual trip that I've done with my dad and my brother. Some of my dad's friends that he's done for many, many years. I think this was their 25th anniversary. So kids were allowed to finally come along, so that was pretty sweet. It was like 15 degrees there in Montana. On the mountain, probably like 9 degrees. So when I got back to LA, and it's been historically cold for about a month now with lots of rain. But I got off the plane, and it was like 58 degrees, and I was just thinking, it is so warm. I took my jacket off. It felt great, but I know in about 2 or 3 days I'm gonna be freezing again, sleeping in like socks and sweatpants.
Yeah, right back to it. Yeah, we've had crazy, like, I was telling Jackson that too, like crazy, like end of the world weather in Los Angeles County. Like, it's just randomly hailed. There was like snow by the Hollywood sign, and not as dramatic as probably we're making it, because I think we're making that because at least I'm from LA, and we make every like subtle weather change like it's the end of the world. But it's definitely been strange weather for sure for like about a month.
It's weird. I mean, I've lived here for about like 5 years now, and this is the longest quote unquote winter, I guess you could say, we've had. Where I mean, it typically gets cold and rainy for like December and January, but this year it's lasted for like a normal amount of time, and it's like the rest of the country is already buried half in snow, and we're just getting pissed off about a little bit of rain. But it is cold.
Yeah, we are pretty
still spoiled, but cold.
I was gonna say pussies. Thank you for saying spoiled. That's better. For lack of a better way to put it, we are very spoiled about our weather, especially when you live close to the beach. Like, any drop of rain, it's like, oh, this is horrible.
Well, I mean, the beach weather does get cold. It's like that that ocean air that comes through, and that wind will cut right through you.
Yeah, it's true. All right, so we can get to some stuff that we've been watching. We can start with, since we were last on, there were a couple of things that actually you and I watched together in between. There was one day we were looking for something to watch after we went to lunch. And by the way, of all the streaming services, I use Netflix the least, I think.
Mhm.
So I kind of forget that when you're scrolling to look for stuff, it plays like little mini trailers of what
Yeah.
you can possibly watch. And like, dude, guys, when we were like looking for something to watch, there are so many. There's just, I guess Netflix is all about like quantity over quality sometimes. There's
Yeah.
a lot of shitty things on Netflix.
Yeah.
And we were scrolling through so many bad, awful trailers, like looking for
Well,
something.
it's not
to
just
watch.
trailers. A lot of it is just snippets from the movie too.
Movie, yeah, that were just not good. I can't remember the name offhand. I think it was like We Got a Ghost or We Had a Ghost. Or
Oh
whatever
yeah,
it was.
the new one with
Like,
gosh,
Mackey's in it.
yeah,
and
Harbor,
and
David Harbour,
David Harbour,
who
yeah,
has no lines and just like run. Yeah, that looks awful.
it looked awful. And then we ran by Your Place or Mine. I think it's the Ashton Kutcher, Reese
Oh
Witherspoon
yeah,
rom-com. That preview was like the whole movie. It was like
Yeah.
it pretty much gave everything away.
It's like a
And I
7-minute preview.
Yeah, and I think if we hadn't landed on the next one, maybe we would have
We
watched
might
that.
have watched that.
You were like, because
Just
you're
out
like,
of just, I was like, I'm kind of intrigued. Like, I don't know. I feel like I already know exactly what's gonna happen, but
yeah. So thankfully, we ran across. Well, I don't know if it's thankfully. Well, whatever. It's still
Yeah.
an entertaining movie. We watched most of 21. We didn't finish it because we had plans, but like it. God, when that came out, 2007, 8, somewhere in there.
yeah,
I believe, and it's about like MIT students that are counting cars in college. It's like loosely based on a true story. I don't know how. Like, I was actually looking it up when we were watching it. I guess there's like a big issue about the nationalities they use in the movie, because like a lot of the kids in real life are like Asian and not white. But
Yeah.
so and it's funny as we've talked about that on the Better Luck
On
Tomorrow
this
stuff,
already, yeah.
on this, that studio was like, you know what, we're just gonna go with what's sell us tickets and like kind of change that part of the story. What we took away from it, even though we didn't finish it, I hadn't seen it since it came out in theaters. I will say that it was flashy, and it like any movie that kind of shows off that kind of lifestyle that makes you want to feel like you want to be a part of it. It does that pretty well. But the screenplay is not good.
It's pretty bad. Yeah.
It's pretty cringy. I mean, there's a lot of use of narration, and we were talking about how like it's hard.
Narration is really poor, really poor.
Yeah, I can't think of a solid example offhand right now where I think narration kind of works. I think for the most part, the narration is used when they're like, all right, the audience isn't really understanding what's going on, so let's tell them what's going on. But
well, I mean, it even comes down to like he's trying to save up for college, and then the narration is, we couldn't lose. Money wasn't an issue. We just bought everything we wanted in Vegas. I'm like, well, what's the whole point of this then? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it was really cringy, and it got cringier the longer the movie went along. And then there was the issue of Kevin Spacey, which is like, it's not the movie's fault.
Oh my god, I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah,
it's not the movie's fault, because when this came out, we all loved Kevin Spacey still, and we had no idea.
Yeah.
Well, we had no idea. I think some people in the industry had an idea of what was going on with him, but we had no clue. So when that movie came out, you could just watch it and be like, all right, Kevin Spacey seems kind of cool, like whatever.
Yeah. He's like the teacher that you want to be around, but now it's like, it just ages so poorly.
Yeah,
you're watching him with now. Like 4 younger kids.
Yeah,
Vegas, bankrolling them.
They're all of age students because they're in college, but like it was just clearly like older person who's like dominating like these people who were younger. And even at college age, like professors should not be engaged in this kind of behavior with their students, like sending them off to Vegas and like counting cards, and like it's wrong. But like when you like dig into the
Kevin Spacey in there,
you dig into it with like Kevin Spacey, like present day subtext, where it's like, oh, like that doesn't age well at all. It just...
Well, also the scene where he's trying to get Ben, like the main character, to join their card counting club. He like lowers his voice, gets really close to him, and it's kind of like, you want this kind of thing. Like it'll like, I'll keep the secret. If not, I'll rat you out. Like there's just like a bunch of stuff that just seems like it's not really the right way to put it 10 years later.
In like 2007, 2008, whenever the movie came out, it didn't come off predatory. Like now it comes off really predatory, and we were like laughing at so many things that he was saying, because it was just like, oh, that didn't age well. That didn't age well either. So I mean, if you watch that movie again and watch it with those like set of eyes and ears, you're gonna be like, oh, that's kind of it's a little weird now.
Yeah, and I mean the first half of the movie's great. I think it's
Yeah,
good pacing and it kind of sets everything up. And then I mean even the end is just kind of like, all right, we need Lawrence Fishburne to catch him. It's
yeah,
just like it's like a weird wrap up to the movie. So I think they probably didn't really know how to end it. They had this great like sort of based on a true story idea, and they're just like, all
yeah,
right, we got to find some sort of like antagonist in order
right,
to kind of get rid of him. But
yeah.
it's entertaining. It's entertaining.
It's entertaining. Like, I mean, I would still say I like it overall. I
Yeah.
mean, but like, yeah, it just had script issues, and like,
I
it's
mean,
weird too
I know
because
we
like,
talked about it.
yeah, yeah,
Sorry, I was gonna say, I know we talked about the uh taking the white actors and when they were probably Asian kids in real life.
yeah,
What
yeah.
was the actual Asian kid's name that they chose? It was like something super stereotypical too.
Feeling it right now. It's like really, it's like very. I'm glad you brought that up too because it's very stereotypically like Asian. If you're gonna have like an Asian
Yeah,
family,
it's like, and he
it's-
reminds me a lot of
his
Virgil
name is from Better Luck Tomorrow. His name was Choi.
yeah,
So everyone else
Choi.
had like
Yeah,
so we have like Ben Campbell, Jill Taylor, Mickey Rosa, Kiana, and Choi.
Choi.
Everyone
I was
Choi,
like,
and he's played by Aaron Yo. I mean, it was just like very much a stereotypical like how you would
yeah.
play that, and I'm pretty sure that didn't go over
Mhm.
well either for those who like are
Yeah.
familiar with the real story. And yeah, yeah, I would say I think it
Mhm.
starts out really well. I like the prep part of it a lot more than like
Yeah,
the action that
definitely.
goes on in Vegas. Like the whole getting ready to do it and how they plan it is more interesting than all the action that takes place in Vegas. And then it gets a little cliched, and I know we left before we could finish it, but I was like, I'm kind of remember where it went, and like, yeah, it
Yeah.
was, not
I
not a
mean,
bad way to spend
it's
a
kind
couple
of
hours.
no, yeah, it's kind of like those heist movies where I mean the best part is the building of the gang, where
Yeah,
you get everyone together. So I
yeah,
feel like they kind of like that's as much as those things are also cliche now. I think
yeah,
that was the best part of the movie. So I kind of get it.
yeah. So I don't know if it was just like an obsession with Vegas, or people just love blackjack, or if nothing else was out when this movie came out. I also told Owen this movie made a lot of money. I had no
Yeah,
idea.
it's overseas
It
too.
Yeah, it made like $81 million in the States and 157.8 million worldwide on a $35 million budget. I don't remember it being that successful when it came out, but I guess it was. It spent 2 weeks at #1 too when it came out. I'm just assuming it was 2 slow weekends.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
why that happened. And then other than that, we also saw Cocaine Bear together, and that
Yes, we
was
did.
a lot of fun. Also, another movie that had script issues, but this is different because I don't need the
She's
script
a
to be great.
nurse.
Oh yeah, God, I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen it. Lets you know that Carrie Russell's character is a nurse because it has to
Um,
pay off. It has to pay off in the story.
and she fixes a freaking bullet wound in a like a lake underneath the waterfall
Right.
with no equipment.
Yeah.
Like,
It has to pay off twice. So like when they like come up on that rock and you think it's blood, and then she like wipes it, and then he kind of
it's
like puts
pain.
it's pain. It's pain. She's like, "How do you know that?" She's like, "Oh, I'm a nurse." Okay, cool. I guess
All
that's
right.
one time's fine. But then they do it like again, like when like we didn't forget. I know Ice Cube's son got shot, and we don't
Yeah.
want him to die. We don't want him to die, of course, because he's cool. But how are they
Yeah.
gonna save his? How are we gonna save his life? Don't worry,
She's a nurse.
So script has
Yelling
to,
after him. Oh,
but
God.
but based on like pure ridiculousness and stuff, it was a fun movie. We laughed. It was funny.
Yeah.
I dug it. I mean, it is
We
what it
didn't
is.
laugh nearly as hard as the people sitting next to us, but
Yeah, there were some people that were like going off, like
yeah.
stuff that wasn't even funny. I was like, oh
No.
well, they might be high. I don't know.
Yeah,
They
we might
could
have
be
been.
good.
But it was I mean, I think that Elizabeth Banks, by the way, this is an Elizabeth Banks film. They let you know that right off the bat.
The bat
Very
film.
big, bold letters, which Gaius saw me just cracking up as soon as I saw that.
It made it look more
Um,
like prestige than it actually was.
Yeah, well, I was like, what is she, Spike Lee? But like, after like, I didn't really know what to expect going in. I think as we
Yeah.
were driving to the theater, I was just like, yeah, like I think this is gonna be fun.
Yeah.
It's a bear on cocaine, so that should be hilarious.
Yeah.
Definitely some good. I thought there might be even more slasher movements. That seemed like a lot of the bear eating and kind of like ripping them up was done off camera. I don't know if they just didn't have as big of a CGI budget or something. I mean, there was definitely some good slasher moments, but
Yeah.
yeah, the story at the end, just like the kid telling Ray Liotta that he's a bad
Bad
dad. That's
dad.
why all these things happen. I was just like, that was just such a cringe moment. And also Carrie Russell, just her daughter's been taken away by a savage bear, and she's like, wow, smart girl, Hansel and Gretel leaving trails. I'm like, dude, your daughter's probably dead. Like,
Yeah.
how are you
That was,
not
that was
just
the
no
one thing that you were
reaction?
just like so upset about. You're like, why is she so calm?
She's so
During
calm.
this
She's
whole
like,
thing.
"Ah, the monster took her. Dude, it's a bear, bro. Like, you know it's a bear. Why would you call it a monster? It makes no sense.
Yeah, that's
But it
true. I
was
mean,
very good. It was good.
and I also, I guess I give it credit for attempting to have like some subplots that, that it wasn't just like the bear on cocaine. I mean, I guess that's what most people probably wanted. They could care
Mhm.
less about the human stories at all. But
Yeah.
the fact that they like at least tried to give you people to kind of care about and root for, I thought that was a good attempt. I thought that certain characters worked better together than others. Like Eddie and David, it's like O'Shea Jackson Jr. And I always forget how to pronounce Han Solo's last name, but his first name's Alden. His
He was
last name's really
great.
hard.
He was
He
great.
was hilarious. I just wish he did more comedy because I thought he was really funny. Like the one line that he dropped when Ray Liotta was saying that, like, "Oh, you left the dog in the car," and he was just like, "You left my son in St. Louis."
Yeah, that's perfect.
It was just perfect
Perfect.
timing.
So good.
He was really funny, and like it. I looked up online how they did a lot of the bear stuff. I mean, of course, a lot of it's CGI, but they actually had a guy in a suit,
In a
so they
suit,
could
yeah.
in the motion capture suit, they could like fill in like where they needed to. And I was just like, dude, to be an
Lion
actor,
King style.
yeah, to be an actor and have to suspend your disbelief and be like, oh, this dude is like a bear attacking me,
Yeah,
like,
that's
and having to fake that, like,
probably too the
good
scene
for
where
them.
he's getting where the bear like falls asleep on him. Like that probably was not a comfortable scene for them
Shit.
to film.
I know for sure they had a guy when the bear like breaks down the door when the paramedics are there. Like there was
Mhm.
actually a guy on top of the door, on top of the other dude, having to act like all ferocious and shit. And
Yeah.
credit to actors who are good at like make believe and like
Yeah,
pulling
no,
that out.
definitely.
Because I don't know if I could suspend my disbelief. I'm like, dude, I can't do this. This is
Yeah.
you're not a bear.
No,
This is like,
100%. I actually think it was funny because we had literally just talked about Tucker and Dale, where it's like slasher comedy horror
comedy.
kind of thing,
Yeah,
where the story was amazing and we actually fell in love with the characters.
right.
Whereas this is sort of one where I don't know if they knew that the idea was so ridiculous that they didn't really care, but the story just in the end just was
Yeah,
absolute garbage. I mean, it just really did not tie everything together, especially sort of the kid on his soapbox at the end. Like that
yeah,
really kind of vibe with me very much, but it's just
yeah.
funny how we literally were just talking about one that did it well, and then we saw one that,
Kind of was just okay.
yeah, it was just like, yeah, I mean, it was okay. I would definitely watch it again, but probably
Yeah.
like in a group at a party where I can get up to the counter and go grab a slice of pizza or something, not like sit down
I
and
thought
watch
that was
it.
going somewhere else. I thought it was like with a group at a party on cocaine.
Yeah.
That's where you're going.
Uh,
um, yeah, I mean, I would watch it again too. I thought it was like, and it's also really short. It's only an hour and 35 minutes, so it's a
yeah.
breeze to get through. It's funny. Thought it was fine. I think
It did its job.
we had four people walk out when we went to go see it,
Yeah, that's right.
which was really weird. Like
And one guy was like, "What?" He was just like, "That's the stupidest shit I've ever seen." As he's
yeah,
walking out of the theater.
I don't know what he was expecting,
Yeah,
but
dude, you bought tickets to Cocaine Bear. Like
yeah.
what? Ugh.
Check this. All right, what have you watched anything else? I have stuff that I, of course, have seen, but
Well, I actually just started watching Ted Lasso, so I hadn't seen it before. I think it's really good. It's definitely got that, like, there's so many primetime slash like sitcoms that are kind of trying to become new, but the
yeah,
fact that this one's on a streaming
Apple
service,
TV.
I
Yeah,
think
Apple
it
TV.
does
Yeah,
the fact that it does a great job of it mixes in like good-heartedness, plus there's definitely like a little bit of irreverent comedy as well. So
yeah,
I think it's very good. So I've started to watch that. The character is great, and
yeah.
I mean, it does just make you want to be a better person. So
Well, there we go. I've heard good things about it. I
yeah,
haven't watched it yet. I haven't watched it, but I've heard good things, particularly about the cast has really good chemistry too. They are all really funny, and I heard the
yeah,
writing's really good. Also, a show that knows when it needs to end because I heard this upcoming third season is probably the last one, and like
really,
yeah, they were like, this is the story we want to tell. We're going through a similar thing right now with Succession, and like that show, like being like this upcoming fourth season is it. I
Mhm.
respect that, not going on for too long, writing out a story that doesn't need to be written anymore. Like
The
it's like,
Office.
yeah, there we go, Grey's Anatomy. We're talking to some of you guys.
Seriously.
But yeah, I've heard good things about Ted Lasso, and since it's only like coming up on 3 seasons, like that's probably an easy watch to
It's
get
an
in.
easy binge.
Yeah. So just Ted Lasso.
Yeah, that's pretty much
Nice.
been it. I think that I've been watching the Formula One show because I really like the golf one. I got to see Full Swing, and it's the same producers and directors that have done F1.
Yeah.
Never really got into F1 at all, but I started watching the show, and it's guys racing awesome $1 million cars at 200 miles an hour, so it's pretty entertaining.
There you go. Sometimes it's the simplest of needs. That's all you need.
Yeah, it's just like just pure testosterone. That's all it is.
So I'll go through mine really quick. I been watching Succession the last season again because I just want to be like, I mean, I already feel like I caught up, but I just want to be up to speed before season 4 starts. I've said it before and I said it again. I think it's like one of the best like written shows currently on right now, and the acting is really good. I'm gonna miss it when it's over, but I mean, I'm also cool with just like, when you need to tap out and there's no more story to tell, then I'm fine with that too. I'd rather have 4 great seasons of television and then like 4 good and like 4 mediocre ones after that. So it's good if they know when to wrap it up. But yeah, I've been watching that again, and then I saw Creed 3, also very
nice.
Good.
I'm trying to see that this weekend maybe.
It was really good. Michael B. Jordan's directorial debut. He does some really amazing stuff. Like try some amazing visual stuff, especially with the climactic fight. That's really good. You can tell that he has like a pretty bright future ahead of himself.
Nice.
Behind the camera. There's a lot of
like early 30s. Like he's still got
it should be like early 30s, mid 30s, somewhere in there. Yeah, he's young.
He's got a long career ahead of him.
Got a long one. Jonathan Majors again playing opposite of him. This is Kang from Ant-Man. He's had a good, even though reviews for Ant-Man were mixed, the guy has, that movie was #1 for 2 weeks. Creed was #1 last week with $58 million opening weekend. Jonathan Majors is having like a great moment, and he's also great in this. Him and Michael B. Jordan are great together, but Jonathan Majors steals a lot of scenes. Like he's so like intense and completely. I mean, this guy can play anything, I think, and
nice.
He kind of proves that again. And some people are bitching about there's no reference to Rocky, but I think it was important with this one to make it stand on its own and not have to use Rocky as a crutch. Because I rewatched Creed 2, and that movie feels like forces him in there and makes it more about him and less about who the movie's named after.
Yeah.
So I thought with this third one, like it was best to kind of allow him to step out of like Rocky's shadow a little bit, and they did it well.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it looks awesome. I actually haven't even seen the other ones, but this one with Jonathan Majors, like kind of as the other front runner, I'm definitely gonna buy a ticket to see it.
Yeah. So Creed's really good. So Creed, I would put like first, and then Creed 3, and then Creed
it's funny
2.
With all these boxing movies, everyone has like a list of like, okay, so Rocky's great, Rocky 2 and 3 not good, 4 great. It's like everyone just like ranks them based on.
And 4 is always great. There's one guy, Tyler, he listens to the show. He was on Twitter and he was like, I don't understand why people like Rocky 4. I don't get it. Like, and that's the fan favorite one. People love it, and I think it's the highest grossing one, like overall, like out of all of them. And of course, it has like Ivan Drago. I think that's why people like it so much. But it is like more of like feels like an 80s montage rather than a movie. But people,
there's always one too that everyone, no matter what, agrees is just dog shit.
Yeah.
No matter what, there's always one that people are just like, yeah, that one's bad.
That's true, actually. That is really funny, especially with those movies.
Yeah.
And then last night, I can talk about it because it'll be, embargo was already up. I saw Scream 6 last night.
Dude, nice.
Press screening.
It was.
It's really good. I mean, these guys, Radio Silence, who directed it, and these new writers, I don't know. I kind of will deep dive this movie, not this movie, but like their other movie, Ready or Not. It's a horror movie, horror comedy ish. When I found out they were doing the last Scream, I was like, okay, if anyone can do it, if it's not gonna be Wes Craven because he sadly passed away, if it's not gonna be Kevin Williamson because he wants to pass the reins on to someone else, these Radio Silence guys are really, really good, and they proved it a bit with the last one. They were able to kind of like make a legacy sequel that worked, and with this one you can feel like they're putting their own stamp on it. I think taking it out of Woodsboro was a great idea. Setting it in New York is perfect. There are some really good set pieces that take place in like public that are still pretty fucking scary. The
Yeah,
fact
we
that
saw
like,
we saw a commercial for it, a
yeah,
trailer, and like it's in the like a bodega or something, like in the
yeah,
middle.
yeah, and like
That
but
looks
they got
crazy.
shotgun. That scene was awesome. There's one that on a crowded
Yeah.
fucking subway train that's also really scary because it's like Halloween night and everyone's dressed up and masked and it's
Yeah.
perfect. And there's another really good scene where they're trying to go from one apartment to the other and they're using a ladder to kind of like crawl across to get to the other apartment. And it's
Yeah.
just it's so much tension and it's like really done well. It's gory as fuck. I mean, it's brutal. It's probably the most brutal
Nice.
of the movies. And usually at press screenings, they're pretty stuffy, but everyone there was loving every minute of it. And the new cast is great. I mean, I thought they were good in the last one, but they make it their own in this one.
That's awesome.
Johnny Ortega has a lot more to do. You could tell that, like, they were
They're
like,
like
this girl's a
they're
star.
leaning on her limelight. Yeah.
Yeah, this girl's a star, and you know what? She owns it. She's really good. Melissa Barrera is good. Mason Gooding, Jasmine Savoy Brown, all good. And they bring back some legacy characters. Courtney Cox is back too. She has a really good chase scene for like people that love that character. And then they brought back Hayden Panettiere from Scream 4. She's a fan favorite from that
Love
movie.
her.
And they brought her back in a way that made sense and it works. None of it feels shoehorned or like forced. So like that's the
Nice.
best way I think I can describe it. No Nev Campbell, no Sydney, but they explained it well enough to not have her there. And they
Yeah.
choose to do another one. Just offer her some more money and she'll be there, dude. Like it's not
Yeah.
hard.
Seriously.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I think
She
they
had
want to.
5.
Yeah, I think they want to conclude this one with as a trilogy too. So figure out a way to get her back. If you do, I mean, I guess you are going to do Scream 7. It's tracking to make a lot of money this weekend. But
Yeah.
I would definitely see it again. It was a fun slasher horror movie. And I was talking about it with someone at the press screening yesterday. A long time ago, if you were on your sixth movie, it'd be like, especially a horror movie, you'd be like, oh, this is being done to death. Like, stop doing them. Like a long time ago, when it was like Halloween 6. Yeah, there you go. Fuck you. Halloween 6 or like Friday the 13th 7. Like, but now like that's kind of changed. Like, we make fun of like the Fast and the Furious movies, but like once you get like to 4 and 5 and they reinvent themselves, they become like these
Yeah.
totally different things and they start making a ton of money. And the same thing's happening with like Scream. It's on its sixth
Yeah.
installment. It doesn't feel like it.
I wonder if it's going to be the same. They're going to announce like that the next one is going to be released again next year. Like, remember when 5 came out and they're like, yes,
Yeah.
6 is going to be released in like 7 months. And we're
Yeah,
like,
they were.
what?
It was really quick. They were like, it was released in January. All right, we're gonna start shooting in the summer. It'll be out next March.
Yeah.
It was
I
like
wonder
so
if, I
fast.
wonder if they've already got the green light to do that for
I wonder
7.
too.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
It's a quick turnaround, but you wouldn't have guessed it. I mean, I guess I'm assuming that these guys had like maybe an outline of what they would want to do for 3 movies. And so it's not just like,
Mhm.
let's kind of wing it on the next one. It has so many parallels to like what happened with Scream. I mean, Scream in 96 was successful and they quickly pushed Scream 2 out there. And Scream
Mhm.
2 did well and was successful too. So like, and there's also like really cool narrative parallels between Scream 2 and then
Mhm.
this second new Scream.
Oh, nice.
They really care about the fans. And I think that's like what kind of shows is that they are fans of this franchise and they're not trying to
Mhm.
like take it over and like make it something it's not. They are very much aware of what it is. And like I thought that was really cool. Like I think Wes Craven would be proud of it. I know Kevin Williamson has said that he's proud of what they're doing and carrying it on. So yeah, bring on more if they're going to be this good. I don't care what number we get to.
I like to imagine that I like to imagine that they did have an idea for Scream 7 or sorry,
Yeah.
Scream 6.
Yeah.
And then Wednesday comes out and they're like rewrite, and just put Jenna Ortega in front of everything on this. Yeah.
Like how much is that Jenna girl in this? Like, oh yeah, she needs more scenes like ASAP.
Cut half the movie, put her in it.
Yeah, but what a welcome thing for your movie to watch this girl blow up. I mean, they're mentioning
100%.
they're mentioning her name alone in like the box office predictions. They're like, hey, we feel like this movie's gonna do really well because she's so popular now. So yeah, I mean, I would rewrite it too.
I also think it's gonna bring a younger crowd because I know a lot of families that had watched Wednesday. And so like some of those like I don't know 12 to 15-year-olds who might not really be into horror are probably going to want to go see it because she's in it.
Yep.
Well,
and it's not one of those things where
maybe
she's
not
barely in it.
maybe not in theaters, but they'll probably be one of those we were
Watch
just
it,
talking
yeah.
about too. Sneaking into movies.
Yeah.
We'll probably see
like-
some teenagers getting kicked out of Scream 6 here pretty soon.
Yeah, like when I saw Scream 2 back in the day, I got some older person to buy her tickets. Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
Not as safe anymore. All right, so the other thing I watched today was what I picked for our deep dive this week.
I also
I,
watched it today.
I would like to point out that when he was done watching it, when he wrote "bro" that movie, haha,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, that could go either way. Uh, but yes, I will tell you guys what I picked. I picked Mr. Brooks. It's a 2007 psychological thriller directed by Bruce A. Evans, starring Kevin Costner, Demi Moore, Dane Cook, and William Hurt. The movie follows the title character, a celebrated Portland businessman and serial killer who is forced to take on a protege, played by Dane Cook, after being blackmailed, and has to contend with his bloodthirsty alter ego, played by William Hurt, who convinces him to indulge in his habit. His life grows even more complicated when a driven police officer, played by Demi Moore, reopens the investigation into his murders. This movie was released on June 1st, 2007, to mixed critical reviews, but it grossed $48.1 million worldwide on a $20 million budget. And in the year since its release, has gained a little bit of a cult following, has a 7.3 out of 10 on IMDb, which is pretty good for like a thriller like this. I don't think Owen ever watched it before today.
I did not.
So I'm just gonna get Cliff Notes reaction to it first, and then we'll switch off from there.
Sounds good.
Owen.
Well, so to start, I tried to watch this on Amazon Prime. I tried to look for it on the Google Play Store. I tried to look for it on YouTube. I tried to look for it on all these different places, like probably 7 or 8 different places online, and all of them were unavailable. So I think that was a sign for them saying like, this is probably not the best movie that you should watch. This movie is ridiculous. There are so many, like, I was sitting here on the couch, and there were probably like 4 or 5 moments where I was just out loud, I was like, bro, what the fuck? Like, what is this? Dane Cook is terrible. Dane Cook is terrible in this movie. He is.
All right, we're gonna feel a little differently about that. All right.
Okay, I think he's so, his lines are so bad that there's even a line that William Hurt says. They're both looking back at him as he leaves.
Oh, I know you're gonna say, because I wrote this line down too.
Charming and funny, I don't think that I would like him.
Yeah,
and I was just like, facts. But like, even Kevin Costner's performance, man, so flat. I don't know if they made it to seem like he was just like didn't really care about anything, but it just seemed like he was just kind of going through the motions. It seemed like Nick Cage when he was in debt and he just needed to make movies for money. Like, I really don't like just didn't seem like maybe he read the first 4 pages of the script and was like, yeah, this looks good. And then as they're filming it, like he just kind of realized that it wasn't his thing. I honestly don't know, but I don't really think that the story was very good. There was a lot of different like plot lines that
like subplots
that just didn't make sense. Like the whole I'm pregnant sort of thing, they sort of just like introduced it, and then it turned into like an abortion commercial where basically Kevin Costner was like, you can't do that, like that's not what I want. And then it turns into all this sort of like, don't do it, don't like kill the baby, whatever. That part kind of threw me off too. And then, is she pregnant or did she just kill someone at Stanford? And then
that's something I want to kind of ask you about too.
And then it back, oh no, but we're gonna like, I'll gotta do this so that the kid can have a good life. Which, first of all, their parents' reaction so mild, like, oh, I'm pregnant. It's like, who's the father? Does he know? Okay, well, we'll get through this. It's just so like mono. It was so.
Well, she was in college, right? I mean, it looked like she was in high school. I mean, like, I guess like.
Yeah, but still, no matter what, you get knocked up by a married man that has 2 kids, like, and you're just kind of like, all right, like, and then Kevin Costner's reaction is, looks like we're gonna have to start getting up early a little bit now. I was like, what? Like, that's so not realistic at all. And maybe it's just my thought process. Like, I wasn't a fan of Dexter. I know that's gonna draw some.
Oh yeah,
that was but like this whole I can't.
They had shades.
Yeah, it was like. Maybe they hopped on this Dexter fad and they're like, let's make a movie about it. But like, I just thought the filming was it just threw me off because there's this character that's obviously in his head. That's his sort of alternate personality. That's like telling him what to do. But the way that it's filmed, it's just 3 dudes sitting in the car and none of them are really looking at each other. And it just makes it feel super awkward when like he's talking to Dane Cook and then there's this guy just kind of staring over his shoulder talking to him, and then he's then Dane Cook can't hear what they're saying, but then he can hear what just kind of just totally was not really the style that I liked. And I thought some of the dialogue was pretty bad. Dane Cook pissing himself was just dumb. There were just some certain moments where, oh my, dude, when Demi Moore gets kidnapped and thrown
in the
into the
middle
back of that
of the back
van,
split, yeah.
dude, this I laughed so hard. There's like a half-second frame where she's literally getting launched. It looks like when the van I can't stop it. When the van hits, it looks like she's being launched like 50 feet into the air. And also,
Yeah,
why would you kidnap someone and immediately drive 100 miles an hour without closing the van door and then just like roll? Like there were just a lot of things that it's just a ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous.
All right, I gotta try and see if I can sway on some things, because this is good, because we did mention that we might not always agree on these. And okay, what I will mention about Kevin Costner, because I can see why you thought he was flat, but the way I looked at it, and this is all like, interpretation, right? I'll even say this: Kevin Costner for me is usually pretty boring. I'm not really like a big Kevin Costner guy at all.
Yeah.
But to me, there was like a calmness to how he played the part that made it kind of creepy. That like the whole like monotone, like it seems like he like there was something about that when he walks into the room, like the first murder you see, and he just calmly just says hello, and like not it doesn't really make a big scene. And when she starts screaming, and he just calmly says like, "Oh, don't do that," and then like shoots her. I thought that kind of worked, I guess, a little bit. Which like which you saw as like him being like too flat and monotone. I just thought that like it made him a bit more like creepy in that sense, rather than like kind of like the frothing at the mouth kind of serial killer. That's obviously like crazy and demented. So I usually don't like a lot of the stuff that he's in or does, but I actually thought he was pretty good in this. So like it's interesting to kind of see your take on it. Like you thought that like he kind of didn't portray it that well.
Well, in that sense, when he's doing the killings, like I get that, where it's like something that he feels like he has to do, and then, but I think the flatness was more like his interactions with every other, like his normal day interactions, like the way that he was talking to his wife, the way that he was talking to his secretary was just kind of like it just seemed like he was just like not a very interesting person at all, and he wins Man of the Year, like has to be a very thriving member of the community. But for someone who acts like that, it just seems like he's kind of just like there. And so that's wasn't necessarily the killing that kind of did it for me, but it was just his normal day, everyday acting.
Well, here's how I took it too, and I could be overthinking how the writer thought of this. What I liked about the movie as a whole compared to like other serial killer thrillers is that it wasn't so much about like the morbid side and like really showing the killing that much. It was more about like the psychology and the duality and the methodology of like being someone like this. And I took him as like them presenting him as someone that, even though he won Man of the Year, like he worked for like a box company basically. He wasn't he wasn't like anyone exciting. And I think like when you look at some of these like true crime like serial killer stories, a lot of these guys are really boring, like mundane
accountants or something like that
in real life. So I think that's what they were trying to do with that part of it, kind of make him seem like more of like a boring like everyday man, and then who has this really like dark side that he can't control. I like how like the movie immediately opens with that kind of like duality though, where like it's already like his alter ego, and like there's been like a lot of people judge this part differently. A lot of people love that they at least physically showcase that he has this other part of him that like is talking to him, and this other side of him. I thought that was interesting because I don't think a lot of movies or shows really present it that way. It might be like the voice in your head, but they really don't have like a physical like manifestation of it. So I thought that was, and then William Hurt is just so different from him that they're able to kind of play off of that really well. Where like Kevin Costner, like you said, is really calm and like put together. William Hurt, he's like this other side of him that's like a pure monster that just gets off on all these thrills, and presented like he's giving him good advice, but the advice he's giving him is because he wants to continue to do all these like vile like things. And I thought they opened it up well with presenting it, especially with the first murder, where like
Mhm.
he's in the backseat of the car and he's in the car with his wife and he's trying to convince him like, she'll be at the dance studio, like you can go here. And then he has his wife like, I wasn't really, I was 8 at the thing, but I wasn't really feeling like dessert. I'm gonna move for something sweet. And the only reason he went to that place so he could watch the girl at, them at the dance studio.
Yeah.
And I also like it, like you're getting at the beginning of it, that he's done this a while, but he also is trying to stop. Like he
Mhm.
doesn't want to do it anymore. And that first kill would have been his last kill if he hadn't got
Approached,
caught
taking a picture. Yeah, taking a picture.
by Dane Cook. So, like you said, there's a lot of subplots, right? So there is the subplot involving like just Mr. Brooks and his alter ego,
Mhm.
and him being a serial killer, the thumbprint killer who's like been doing this for years, and like as we get into the movie, has gone like dormant for like 2 years,
Yeah.
hasn't killed anyone. And then you also have Mr. Brooks, the family man, who is a husband and a father, and like
Mhm.
living that kind of normal life. And then you also have this other subplot where his daughter mysteriously just comes home from college, and his alter ego was like, there's more to it than like what she's telling you about why
Yes.
he suddenly quit. She's quit school and wants to work for you, and like all this other stuff. And then there's subplots
There's also the FBI, or is it FBI, or is she just like a detective?
Detective, yeah. Then
Detective who is going through a divorce and
Yeah.
is very rich for some reason, which they kind of explain,
Yeah.
and is going to pay off her ex-husband, who put away a lot of people. One of them escaped and is trying to kill her.
Yeah.
And then Dane Cook, who wants to become a serial killer for some reason and trusts Kevin Costner. Yeah, I think is that all of them?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so yeah, there's that subplot with Dane Cook catching. He's the one that's taking. So I think with Dane Cook's character, he already has a fetish for like taking pictures of like people. They said that they like while they're like they have their like lines open and stuff. He's taking pictures of them having sex, like when they're in compromising positions, like
Yeah,
that kind of. You find out more later that he's been doing that for a bit.
that's
So he's
one of the
already
Kevin Costner things. Like he'll take pictures of them once they're dead and
yeah,
everything.
yeah. So Dane Cook's character is already presented as being like a little off. So it doesn't really surprise me that he would want to kind of get involved in, or thinks he wants to get involved in it, because when he actually does, like you said, he pees his pants. Um, so there's that subplot, and then and I will say this: the subplot that I think is the weakest, even though I can see what they were trying to do, is all the stuff involving Demi Moore. Now, I don't think Demi Moore is bad in it. I think she, for the most part, plays a tough, like, maybe a little stereotypical. Maybe the dialogue for her wasn't great, but like, I think she pulled
See
it
you
off
later,
mostly.
alligator.
Oh, I didn't like that. No, I didn't like that. But I think what they didn't fully flesh out is more this like. I actually like that they presented that she was wealthy, and that's the reason why he likes her, because he's like, why Mr. Brooks kind of like has an affinity for her, because like she is doing all this like detective work and police work, not because she needs to, because she needs to make money, because she has money, because she actually wants to, and that intrigues him about her. So I actually thought that was interesting. Maybe they didn't like sell that enough. And of course, there's always in these movies, there's kind of like this like psychological push and pull between like the lead detective and the serial killer. They didn't explore that enough. They didn't explore that enough in this, I don't think. And they could have. And all you really get is that like that phone call at the end that kind of like links them, like when they're talking to each other finally. But I think for the most part, like her stuff is kind of cliched, right? Like the stuff with her. But then like some of it does pay off. Like the stuff that she's going through with like her ex-husband and the lawyer, when Mr. Brooks decides like, okay, when that couple is going to be the couple that him and Dane Cook are going to actually kill, in a weird twisted way, like because he has an affinity for her, he's like doing it for her, like almost as a favor to her. And I thought that was interesting, but maybe it wasn't explained as well as it should have been.
It
like,
wasn't. It felt that part felt super random to me, because when he's like, "Oh, we're not gonna kill the like angry truck driver, the one that Dan Cook originally wanted to kill."
Yeah,
they see the hangman, the hangman, or whatever, the guy that escaped from prison.
Yeah.
And then he's looking at her. He's looking at their vehicle, researching them. Goes to that hotel spot. I thought he was gonna kill them, and then shows up at the lawyer's. The lawyer and her ex-husband's apartment, and I was just like, "Oh, didn't expect that." Like, it just seemed like that part just seemed like it wasn't really set up the right way.
I think and this is kind of a detriment, but I think they were trying to be like, there's subtle moments or maybe looks or maybe lines are like, oh, we're making it look like we're gonna go after them, but like her main issue, the main thing that she's going through is this kind of contentious divorce, and maybe they should have
Mhm.
made that more clear that like, okay, I'm gonna switch over to this being the person that we're gonna kill because like I said, like it does have this like strange like affinity for her. Like he is kind of like impressed
Yeah.
by her or like
Mhm.
whatever. But yeah, I can see that need to be made more kill. I actually don't like the subplot with the hangman. I think it's there because it's supposed to show how dedicated she is to her work and how dedicated she was
Dude,
to
this
putting him away, and how and it does distract because this feels like she's on almost in a different movie than
Yeah.
the
Dude, the
rest of them.
shootout the
Yeah,
shootout in the
yeah,
hallway,
yeah.
what was that? Like, that
It,
seemed like completely different movie.
yeah,
When they're unloading, like, 19 clips into the
yeah.
hall, like, what was that? That seemed so random.
But yeah, I think that it's funny why I still it's funny like talking to you about it. Like I can see why you're like, oh yeah, that didn't make sense, and that didn't make sense. But when I was watching it today, I was like, oh, I can
You're
see
like,
what they
"Sick."
do. But no, I could. Oh, I know, I did not like that scene at all. Like the way they shot it was like really bad, really bad.
With
Um,
the electric guitar montage, like,
yeah, but I did like how they were trying in the beginning to like, I mean, because she's been working the thumbprint killer case for so long
yeah.
that she was so entrenched in it that like I actually liked the scene where she went back to the murder scene and like she's walking through the house and is like replaying how he walked through it,
Mhm.
and then like she knocks over the phone and she realized like, oh, like
How did you
what
not
was
do
it
that?
it wasn't as dark when you were here that night. Like I thought that stuff was, and then when she realized that like these curtains were obviously not like closed when he was here, I thought that stuff was cool. And maybe if they would have had done more of that
Mm,
with her involving him in that case rather than, you could probably cut the whole hangman stuff out
yeah,
and
I think so too.
just have her be on the trail of him, and that would have been more interesting. But I think they were trying to show how dedicated she was to her work and like all that stuff, and it probably just tacked on more runtime than it needed and
Yeah,
wasn't
it tacked on
necessary.
a little bit more. I mean, it tacked on a little bit more time. 2 hours is a long movie for the I think for this.
Yeah,
But, I mean, it just kind of, like, seemed like there were these random moments that didn't really matter anymore. Like, the whole car chase and the kidnapping wasn't really mentioned again, and you see her getting, like, surgically sewn up.
yeah.
It looks like she's getting, like, open brain surgery. Like, what when they show it.
And she's sitting there
And
so
then
calmly too.
and then her boss comes in, she's like, "How's your divorce?" I was like, "That's so unprofessional, asking someone about their personal divorce." Like, yes, maybe it had been interfering with her work or whatever it was,
Yeah,
but, like, that whole scene was laughable. I know they were trying to bring some seriousness across from it, but, like, just the seriousness of the wound that never gets mentioned again.
yeah,
It
yeah.
just yeah, I don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
Some of
All
those
right,
things I was like, "Alright, I guess we're moving on."
all right. Let's go back to Dane Cook for a second,
Okay.
who calls himself Mr. Smith when he meets Mr.
Smith.
Brooks. Obviously not his name. His name is Graves Afford, actually in the movie. So he gets introduced because he's the one that's taking pictures when Mr. Brooks kills a couple at the beginning of the movie, and he decides that he is going to blackmail them to pictures, and he'll turn over the pictures, turn him in, unless he takes him on out to like
His
commit a
next
murder,
killing.
his next killing, right? Um, okay, you thought he was terrible, and like trying to think about this time period because like I've never been a fan of Dane Cook. I don't think he's funny. I've never been. It's not my brand of like comedy, and this was during a period where he tried to have like a film career on top of being a stand-up.
Yeah.
I can respect when people at least try to do something a little serious. I thought that he kind of pulled off the creepy neurotic thing pretty well. I
Mm.
thought he sold that well, but I do want to know like what you thought like he did that was like like what made him terrible.
So I mean, I agree with you. I think this was just I just looked it up. This was just after Employee of the Month and Good Luck Chuck. So
Shocking.
it's like he's trying to take this sort of serious role.
No,
His sort of like you pictured as like neurotic, I
yeah,
took as just like a whole like he didn't take the whole situation seriously, and so it made me as a viewer not take any of it seriously.
seriously.
So
Okay.
it's like he walks into this boardroom and he's like, "Oh yeah, I know you're the thumbprint killer. Like you're gonna take me on a killing."
Yeah.
Not realizing that he's talking to a man who's murdered hundreds of people. Like, and he's just kind of like, oh, I want to see how you do it. Like that to me didn't seem like a serious situation. And he's kind of like laughing about it, saying like, oh yeah, I have a backup drive. Like,
Yeah.
didn't like goes to sleep that next day thinking that, oh yeah, he probably won't break into my apartment, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like, and then his any of his interactions with me more are just he's so obvious and like sort of skirting around. Like I know that's kind of the point to make her suspicious of him.
Yeah.
But like I think that his dialogue was bad. He throws in some jokes a little bit that I don't know if it's trying to be like sort of a comedic relief for some serious moments, but like I just didn't really understand his character at all. Like,
Right.
oh, like yeah, like I want to kill someone, so I took a picture of this guy and like but then he sees how serious it is and then he realized
Right.
that it's not what he thinks it is. Like I just didn't really connect with that at all.
Right.
And I think that the way that he went about it seemed I mean, I guess they kind of like address it when it's like, yeah, he's impulsive and don't make stupid choices, which he does.
Yeah.
But like the way that he kind of goes about it just seems very like not interesting to me. So I didn't really like the character that he portrayed that much.
So do you think if they would have filled out the script more with like why he wanted to do it, like you would maybe understand? I mean, like you need it more than just like this is a guy that's like taking creepy pictures from like across the way in his apartment. Like sometimes with these like cases like this in real life, it always starts with like these like small, like isolated things that turn into bigger things.
Yeah.
I thought that's what they were trying to say with him, that like he already has this like weird fetish of like watching people and doing all that. But do you think if they would have filled out more like, his psychology, would have made more sense like as to why he wanted to really wanted to go on a like killing with him?
Yes, 100%. I think if you cut the hangman side plot,
Yeah.
like, and then give me some interactions of like, and also they said he had a clean record and stuff like that. So he obviously hasn't done anything before. Like, but if
Right.
you see something like, hey, maybe he has a like a peeping tom charge or something, and he's been caught kind of like doing things before where
Yeah.
he's kind of shown some of these instances before. This just seems like a weird dude who kind of hangs out alone and takes pictures of people, and now he wants
Right.
to kill people. Didn't really give me any backstory to it.
Okay. That's fair. See, as long as you can explain it in a plausible way that makes sense to me, I am all for you
Instead of
disagreeing.
just being like, oh, I hate it.
I hated it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I can see your points. I mean, like, because like I think like sometimes when I watch certain movies, like I will just, and maybe that's not always the right thing to do, like read in between the lines of like why these characters are the way that they are, and that's probably maybe not our job as viewers sometimes. Like maybe that should be like in the script. That should be like, hey, like this person is the way that they are because of this.
Mhm.
I just think I watched it in a different way where I was like, all right, well, he seems to have these kind of weird, like kind of quirks and like things about his personality that would maybe make him curious. And of course, he's not 100% serious. And when it comes right down to it, he pisses his pants and like you can't
Yeah.
really, you can't really do it. But I thought that was like, I do see your point though, that if you cut the hangman stuff like with Demi Moore and like her going
Mhm.
after them, and just honestly, if you would have just focused on, I guess the four. Well, no, because you have the daughter. I think the daughter stuff is actually fairly interesting. I'll talk
Yeah,
about
I
that in a
agree.
second.
Yeah.
But if you were like the main four, and I mean by main four, I mean Kevin Costner, William Hurt, Dane Cook, Demi Moore. If you focus on those four and like the kind of the psychological like kind of
Like even show me
thing
some
that they were
stuff
in,
of like old
cases,
thumbprint
or maybe
killers.
let's say
Yeah,
yeah,
old
yeah,
thumbprint killer stuff where it's like she was really close to catching him, or
right,
here's some of like they said, oh, this the way that he set these bodies up was it seemed not nearly as intimate as some of the other ones. Show
yeah,
me that. Like why like
right,
maybe he's slipping. Like why has it been 2 years? What was the most recent one? That'd
right,
be more interesting than a killer that has nothing to do with the story that's after her.
right. That's true. And as far as William Hurt alter ego, I think he plays really well. I think he's really really, so I feel like I read reviews where that like he kind of chews up the scenery, but I think he does it in a way that's not over the top. Like you can tell he's having fun playing like the bad side of Mr. Brooks.
Yeah.
But I do want to ask you, because you had issues with how they stage certain things, and I guess I was just, I had to suspend disbelief that like whenever that he's talking with him, we're just supposed to believe that there is just like a kind of pause or something where it's like you need to understand like they're just having a conversation. So again can understand, like, especially when there's three people in the scene. It also happens in the scene where his assistant comes in and he's making the
Yeah.
decision to go to his daughter's school to like commit that copycat murder.
Yeah.
And there's like these pauses where she's like, Mr. Brooks, Mr. Brooks. And then his alter ego's like, think long and hard before you answer. I can see how the staging could be awkward, but I'm just wondering how they could have done it any differently, I guess.
Mhm.
Make it, I guess, better for you as a viewer, because I know you said that some of the staging felt awkward. I know you're talking about mainly the stuff in the car where like
Yeah.
they're sitting right next to Dane Cook and he's just
Yeah.
leaning forward in the back seat and they're talking to each other, and then Dane Cook has to just look straight ahead because they're not, of course, interacting
Yeah.
with him.
Yeah, I think the scenes, just like you said, like the ones where there's multiple people in the shot, those were the ones that felt awkward to me. The one in the conference or in his office actually worked for me, where it's like she's not a part of it, so I can tell that like this is technically an all inner monologue within his own head.
Right.
And like he's thinking about it. The pauses did feel like she said Mr. Brooks one too many times, so
Yeah.
I would have, as a receptionist, been like, "Hey, something's up.
What's wrong
But,
with you?
yeah, what's going on? You having a stroke?" But like, I think
Yep.
that like there were certain moments where it's just like I feel bad for the actors who had to shoot it, where Dane Cook's just sitting there,
There, yeah.
just sitting there and like looking out the window and like
And not being attentive to it. You have to pretend like you're
no,
not hearing anything.
not even listening to it. Yeah, so like
Yeah.
those were the ones where there's multiple people on the shot that kind of were just like I don't know, they kind of threw me off, but I did really like. I really liked the way that they put it because I think William Hurt did a great job, especially when they both say something, usually when it's dark, and then they both start laughing. So it's
Yeah, I
like
thought that was good too.
I
Yeah.
think they did it great because Kevin Costner did it a couple times and William Hurt did it as well. So you can tell
Yeah.
that they both have sort of this same their sense of
Well,
humor.
I mean, it's like it's also like he's the same person. I mean, it's
Yeah,
not like it's not like two different people. I mean, in his
yeah.
mind it is, but this is all one dude. And I also like you made a reference to that whole scene where they're. I just wonder if that line was a dig at Dane Cook, because if it was, that's
Yeah,
really
dude, if it
funny.
is, I'd have sued their ass if I
But
was
I
Dane
did
Cook.
love how like watching them both turn at the same time, because
Mhm.
that's when you're like these are the same. This is the same guy. Like this is all in his head, and watching them just like react together, that makes it
Mhm.
fully like this is just one person
Yeah.
who's just really got a fucked up thing going on in his head.
Mhm.
Um, I thought the car scene that actually worked the best was the one in the beginning where it's him and his wife, and then it's William Hurt in the back seat, because at least it's not there weren't like a three shot where they're kind of leaning in together.
Yeah.
I thought like where it was just cutting from like him to her to him in the back, where they're talking about like, come on, let's just go do it. He's like, we can just like she's at her dance studio right now. I thought that interaction was really good because it didn't
Mhm.
really she didn't distract from it, because you
No.
can tell that was more like his inner monologue. And I also like how they use like the mirror too when he wanted to like kind of cut him off in the car, like we're done talking.
Mhm.
And then like the one scene that kind of it's not scary by any means, but the one scene that kind of got me a bit is when he did that and he went to go pull off in the car and he was standing in front of the car, and
Yeah.
he basically told him like, well, fuck you, like he was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I thought that was handled pretty well. I think for the most part, I mean, all that stuff is the most interesting stuff to me, is the stuff
Mhm.
that's going on between these two guys. Like, oh, there's one guy who's like having a fucking battle within his brain between
Yeah.
this person that's supposed to be good and this other person that's pure evil. But then also the pure evil side of him kind of shows moments where he cares about him, where it's just like uh, it's almost like this genuine kind of sympathy. And I don't know if that was maybe the best way to kind of write it, but
Mhm.
like it did kind of come off that way, where like he felt like his own character in a sense, where
Yeah, 100%.
and I thought that was interesting take. There's one scene I want to talk about, and I want to wait till we talked about the stuff with the daughter.
Yeah.
Um, Danielle
Can I just
Panabaker.
say first, I
Yeah,
like when you're talking about the mirror, I think that like that was a great choice when he wants to cut him off.
yeah,
I think that they reverted back to it
too
way
much.
too much. And I think like if they had used it maybe a couple times, like then the significance of it would have been more. But like there were just so many shots of them staring at each other in the in the rearview mirror, and so
Yeah,
I didn't know if one meant something better than the other. But a lot of it was just like, and also usually it's nose
I love
down,
that. Yeah,
yeah, eye level, and so like I felt like it wasn't really it really demeaned some of the shots that actually would have been great if they had used it less. Uh, But I do think that like his interaction with him is the most interesting part of the movie. and
Yeah.
like the fact that they are the same person, but they have such similar and yet dissimilar personalities at the same time. Like that probably was the best part of the film.
Yeah. I think I think that's what kind of gets me into it more, and I kind of I have this issue sometimes where I will pick and choose certain parts of movies where it's like, well, you know what, 75% of that worked for me, so I can kind of ignore like some of the stuff that didn't quite work, which I'm actually admitting to now. Like the stuff with Demi Moore doesn't all work.
Mhm.
The subplot with the hangman killer doesn't work, but I was so enthralled by like the psychology of like what was going on between just Mr. Brooks and his alter ego, and like that interesting kind of like push and pull with like, I don't want to do this, like no, you need to do this, and like also his alter ego's need, like when he was like doesn't want him to stop, he was like, you know, I like living, I like fucking, I like killing, like you can't stop this because
Yeah.
I like doing this. Like I thought
That
just like
line was interesting to me too. Like I didn't know how to take it.
like think in like his brain that this he has become like this separate person entity.
Yeah.
It's not just
Yeah.
like a part of his like mind anymore. It's like total duality between him and his alter ego. And like it's an interesting line, but I thought it was interesting enough to be like, oh, this is a person that's so far removed now that like this isn't a bad part of your brain. Like you are clearly thinking that this is a totally different man, like entirely, like totally different person.
Yeah.
That's not you. And that's how
It's
you can
funny because
excuse the
like
things you were doing.
yeah, and I don't know, one of the things that I thought was interesting is like as long as the movie is, so some of well, some of those like decisions that Kevin Costner makes, like yes, I know you want to skip to as a writer, like the psychology of like trying to figure out whether or not you're going to make this decision or not.
Yeah.
But sometimes it just felt super rushed where just out of nowhere he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna have him kill me," or like, "Yeah, I want my life to end," or like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, I'm gonna go and commit this murder." Like it just seemed like kind of out of nowhere he would just make these quick, impulsive decisions, and then they would kind of talk about why or whether or not to do it. And so, like as a viewer, I was just kind of like, "Oh shit!" Like when did he come up with this? Like
Yeah.
what was his decision for that? And it seemed like a lot of it too was based on, oh, I don't want my family to be embarrassed. And that's
Yeah.
why he didn't want any of it to happen. And I was like, it's a pretty weak.
Well, it would be pretty embarrassing for all that to
It
come
is
out, right? I
embarrassing,
mean,
but it's
like
like, but at the end of
and
the
the
day,
year was like the thumbprint killer for years, and then all the shit with his daughter.
yeah, true.
All right, so Danielle Panabaker plays his daughter. Again, it's another subplot that may feel a tad rushed, but I think is also really maybe second most interesting story aside from what's going on with like Evan Costner and William Hurt. Uh, and I thought that like, so to kind of catch you up, like she abruptly comes home from college, says that she's gonna quit and she wants to work at her fucking dad's like a box company,
Box Factory.
box factory. And the alter ego and even Mr. Brooks knows that there's something more to it, but like is just accepting it. And there's one line where she comes to the office. She comes to his office in a cab, and he's just like, "Oh, like what happened to the BMW?" And she's like, "Oh, there's a friend that's gonna like drop it off later in the week, like whatever." He knows something's up, but he just ignores it, whatever. Then you find out later that there was a murder or college, and it was a pretty messy murder with a hatchet. And you kind of decipher that like she's the one that did it, and he deciphers that right away. And I do want to point out, I think the scene where he realizes that she did it, and his alter ego is like comforting him, like you know, like she has the same thing that I have. Like this is why
The
she's doing
addiction
it.
of killing.
Killing. I actually thought that was like it just makes the whole thing more interesting with like, dude, your evil alter ego is like I comfort you, like you don't want this for your daughter, that kind of thing. I thought that
Pass
was
down my killing addiction.
no, that's pretty interesting. Now she does say that she's pregnant, and I actually googled this to see what other people thought about, was she pregnant or is that just a lie? You know, just to come home and like excuse to kind of like
Get out.
kind of not. Yeah, I I still don't know. I honestly don't. I don't.
Also, how
so.
pregnant could she be? They picked the skinniest actress
To play
and
her.
the player, and then Kevin Costner's like, "How's the morning sickness?" It's like, dude, she's not even showing yet, bro. Like,
Yeah.
how could
She's
she
like
be
ultra thin, like ultra
Yeah,
thin.
There's absolutely no way.
You know, I'm gonna go on the side of like I don't think she was. I think she just kind of she came home and then they needed an excuse to be like, what's going on with her? What are you hiding?
But they
And
kept playing it out. He
yeah,
kept saying, and he was thinking, he's like, "Oh, I got to do this for the future of my grandchild."
yeah. So okay, so in one scenario, she could be lying, but he might think it could be true.
Believe her.
He
Yeah.
might believe her. As a viewer, you could be like, "Oh, I think she's lying," because he might be onto the fact that yeah, she's hiding something, and she's like, "All right, the thing I'm hiding is that I'm pregnant." And I also like how he found out about the BMW. It's like kind of like in the like montage of them talking to the police,
Yeah.
and she says that it was
It's
stolen.
stolen.
It was
Yeah.
stolen, and that's when he really realizes that
She's lying.
she probably did it, which makes him go do this whole like copycat killing
Oh my
uh,
God, dude. Could we talk
in
about this for a
the,
second?
the college to protect her.
Bro, he got fucking James Bond style safe with disguises and fucking passports and shit and a gun. That's the worst disguising and like thing that I've ever seen. That whole situation is pulling on fake mustache. Like, dude, that was bad. That's
Yeah,
that's that's probably the worst part of the movie for me. Is just like the whole
the whole
disguises and that safe with
what
like
I what I did like was the idea that he would go to those links to protect her. To like,
yeah.
oh, I don't want this to fall on her. Again, another interesting thing between William Hurt and him is he's like turn her in, so like this doesn't affect her anymore. Then he lied right after that. He's like, so we can continue on our
Yeah, yeah.
like. So it's not like he wasn't doing it in order to like, oh, let's protect her. He's like, yeah, let's turn her in, so like we don't have to worry about her anymore, and then we can go on and do what we've been doing for like years. That's how I kind of take
But he
the
also
line.
says too, like it might be the best thing for
I
her.
think for
It's
her,
like it
is
won't
he?
turn her
Is
into
he?
him.
But is he saying this is the best thing for her because like
It's a
he
selfish act no matter
a
what.
selfish act, like because he wants to continue like killing and stuff.
Because if she gets caught, they're gonna be like, wait, so you
Right,
kill, and like they'll probably be focusing on her whole family.
right. And another interesting thing about the daughter, which I don't think is written into it, but I don't know if they want you to leave that open for interpretation, is how much she is a. If it's just like Jean or whatever, like she inherited this thing from him, she's
Mhm.
just as evil as him, or is she? You think that she was even like aware that her dad might be like this? Because like
Mm.
some of their interactions are very like, especially the one of the last ones that they have. Uh, he tells her about like the other murder and like well you were here, so there's no way that like I can't suspect you anymore. And then she kind of just like, oh, like the way she talks to him, I can't
It's like,
tell if she's
oh
like,
yeah, even if you're innocent, it's nice to know.
yeah. I don't know if I'm thinking deeper that like maybe she's always kind of known this about her dad and it's like part of her and she, this is a secret that she's keeping, or is it just just in her and she doesn't know that about her father, like the kind of secret life that he's living.
Yeah,
There's probably more interesting ideas in that little concept than they put out there, like in the
mhm,
actual movie.
yeah. And then he goes,
Do
"Love
you
me,
love me?
you love me." I don't think that worked for me either. Was when like his William Hurt's first thought was, "Oh, if this is the gene that she has, she's gonna kill you."
Right.
Like, I don't know why he jumped to that and why that was sort of the next thing, because he's never thought about killing his family. He wants to protect them.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
why would her first sense be, I'm gonna
So
kill my
I,
parents?
I wonder, and this, man, maybe I should have wrote the movie. I just want, I wonder.
Yeah, let's do a Mr. Brooks rewrite. Mr. Bowling.
So like right, so because you remember when he said like when he was describing the whole hatchet thing and he was like like it was just so sloppy, like what was she thinking, like I feel like they were trying to set up the fact that she was more irrational than him,
Wow.
like she didn't think things through, and of course it's just like a throwaway line and I'm probably overthinking it,
There's
but
a lot
like
of inferring a lot of things that we should be thinking.
no, and like is that our job or is the job of the fucking screenwriter? My bad.
Yeah, this movie's 2 hours long. I shouldn't have to do this much thinking, dude.
Okay, but that's why I kind of was like, yeah, is she not as like rational as he is? At least the Mr. Brooks part of him, because like his alter ego is completely irrational.
I thought it
Like
was going to turn into, oh, she doesn't really know how to do it well enough yet, so I'm going to teach her how to
teach
control
her.
this. Dexter style.
So when I first saw the movie, I thought that's how it was gonna go. But then I was like, him as a character, because like toward like as the movie is wrapping up and everything, he's like, you know what, I'm gonna use Dane Cook's character. Like the only way to kind of save my family is to get out of this. I'm gonna have like him kill me, like and that'll be like his like whatever his murder, whatever. Which I thought was interesting. It could work. Will kind of say this about like the ultimate conclusion after they kill Demi Moore's ex-husband and the lawyer.
Yeah.
Even though it is a really cool, creepy shot when he is gonna basically set him up to like shoot him when the gun doesn't like there's no bullets and doesn't go off, and he just like raises his eyes and it's that creepy stare like at the camera, like, oh wait, you know what? I've changed my mind. Like, I don't want to kill myself anymore.
I didn't get that though
There could have been more build up to it, I guess. Like, because he
yeah.
seemed like he was like, I need to do this. I need to like be out of my family's life. This is the only way that I can think to end this, because this thing in his head's not going to stop unless he's dead. And I think that's what he was trying to get at. But like,
Wait, the way that he says it doesn't make any sense. He's like, "Oh yeah, and just before you pulled that trigger, I changed my mind and I went to your apartment, cleaned out all your stuff, figured out like where you kept your security deposit box, and bent the firing pin right before you pulled the trigger. Now you don't want like."
well, it's like he's had a contingency plan in case he changes his mind.
Like what?
Yeah, I guess the writing's not good there either. But you probably like seeing Dane Cook get popped with a shovel.
Yeah, slid across the
throat. In a slit throat with a shovel.
That was. I did like the line. He's like, "I've before I became the thumbprint killer, I've killed a lot of people in a lot of different ways."
Yeah,
I did like that.
Yeah, that was cool because like been this whole setup about how he's so methodical about how he sets people, like how he stages scenes and
Like,
does all that stuff. And there was
like
there was nothing staged like that about that at all. Very sloppy, like much like his like you said with his daughter.
Well, also is love the why do you have keys to a cemetery? But
Yeah.
but also like as he's opening up, he's like, yeah, you got to invest in things that everybody needs, cemeteries and water. And I was like, all right, like should I like put some investments into some mortuaries and cemeteries now?
And then because of how everything's been set up, it looks like, you know, like maybe Dane Cook, he sets it up to where he would like be a copycat, and that's kind of how they're kind of trying to conclude it. And Demi Moore is probably like, oh well, you know, the thumbprint killer's gone, like whatever. And he has this like last phone call with her, which I think under better writing could have been a cool, like, it always reminds me of this. Like, I think every serial killer thriller is trying to chase like Silence of the Lambs and have that kind of like Clarice, Hannibal Lecter, like kind of interaction. Like that is what you want from like your serial killer thrillers where they're playing mind games. I think that's what they were trying to do. They were like
Jason
trying to build
Bourne style kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, that felt like Jason Bourne to me.
Yeah, I think they were trying to build up this like kind of rapport between them, and I understood it on paper, like why he was impressed by her and why he even felt the need to like eradicate the people from her life that were making her life very difficult. But I think I just needed more like dialogue to explain like the connection a bit more. Yeah. And then when he asked her, I mean, of course he asked her like why she continues to do what she does, and like, you know, and you know, she has like kind of throwaway line about like, you know, her dad wishes that she was like born a boy, and like she always had to like prove herself, and like maybe not.
I was like, okay,
it's probably dialogue that the writer thought was smarter than it actually was, and a bit more deeper than it actually was. Like I said, I can see like the shades of what they were trying to do with them, and it would have probably been better, like I said, if they got rid of all the Hangman stuff and just had her interacting with him on the phone or anything, like more interaction between them, or like you said, like having flashbacks to his other stuff that she was involved in. As like I said, it does feel like she's in her own separate movie until they kind of make her converge a bit more with the story.
And also when she's like, "Where are you?" I thought he was gonna say, "Oh, find me in this grave," or something like that. Yeah. And so it would point to the fact that, like, I mean, he's already called her. She knows that that the thumbprint killer isn't that guy.
Yeah.
And so, like, I thought that he was gonna lead her to like the dead dude and prove that he's still out there, but instead he goes, "I'm on top of a building."
It's all building.
Like,
well, I guess we're supposed to get that she is. I think we're supposed to get that she is aware that that was the thumbprint killer and not, because she even says like, she says Mr. Baffert or whatever, and she says like, "Oh, you sound different." I think she knows that it's not him.
Yeah, and so I thought that like he was gonna say. I mean, he's obviously talking in his real voice, normally. Like he obviously wants. They've been talking about taking credit kind of throughout the movie, so I think he wants to do that. I thought that maybe to kind of keep her on the case, to keep her close to him, maybe he would reveal that Dane Cook is dead and he's not the thumbprint killer, but instead he just says he's
on a really tall building.
On a building.
A really tall building. And so the actual ending, which is interesting because I heard from test screenings that it ended one way, then they didn't like that, and they ended it the way that they ended it in the movie.
Dream.
So he goes to his daughter's room after we all know that the daughter has committed murder and that he's worried that like she's going to be just like him. Goes into her room to give her a kiss goodnight, and she full on turns around and stabs him in the throat with scissors.
Yeah.
And I actually thought that was at least visually handled really well. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, it looked realistic.
really
I've never seen it in real life, but
and guys, spoiler, I mean, this movie came out in 2007, but turns out to be a dream. Now, apparently, the original ending, it wasn't.
yeah,
She actually did kill him.
I figured.
She did kill him, and for some reason, test audiences didn't like it. I think the main thing was that like some audiences actually liked him and didn't want him to die. And I think that was I think they say he's flat. I think he's charming in certain aspects of the movie. I think he's an interesting character to say the least, I guess. Probably more interesting when he's interacting with his alter ego. But I think that's what they didn't like about it, is that he died. And but I think it would have been a much darker, maybe more satisfying ending.
Well, because she puts the glasses on like she's going to be the next.
Like she's going to become him. And there is some trivia that kind of alludes to there were supposed to be more of these movies, which probably would have made you so happy.
Oh God, bro.
But I'm also, I mean, for the sake of the movie and with the things that he was worried about, I'm not upset that it turned out to be a dream. It was like, this is something that he's going to live with, like wondering if like could his daughter actually do that to him? Is like if she could be that far gone and like so I thought that was interesting enough. Like,
yeah, I mean it ends with I like him saying the prayer at the end. Like I guess that was a good ending. Yeah. But also kind of took me back to the beginning. Like the beginning was just like a screen writing of he's hungry again.
Oh, he thought it left, but it never really had or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I don't know if that was an early 2000s choice. Like with that kind of like opening, but like I expected there to be some sort of ending with maybe some script or some writing, because it was just how it ended. It didn't in the beginning, but I mean the other early 2000s thing is when he's like getting off after the first murder,
like spitting and like the euphoria, like
I was like 7 minutes in and I was like, oh, it's gonna be a long 2 hours.
You were like fucking Gaius.
Oh,
hey, guys, this is the first one that we didn't agree on, which is good, I think, because I think it makes it interesting to like we said, we can actually have a talk and discussion about movies and not be like, well, that was stupid what you just said.
No, don't do that.
Yeah. Before we started, he was like, "This is gonna be a funny one." Like I said,
getting launched from that fucking van is the funniest thing. I just laughed out loud. It looks like she's getting thrown from like a monster truck or something, going like 100 miles an hour. God,
I'm gonna have to like you talking about that scene and then throwing that scene on like the outtakes for this episode.
Dude, it's so funny. It's hilarious. And then also when they go and try and find the hangman, and like that looks like a rented out like scary like a haunted house. It's like, oh, the psychiatrist's office or something. Like that. And then the guy falls.
The body
like,
falls.
The ha ha ha, like Joker style sort of thing.
Yeah.
The most obvious dummy, not realistic looking human ever. Like it was just like fell down, and she's like, oh, and then that was all they talked about. Like, who was that?
Right.
Was there?
What's happening? What's happening? All right. Well, I will say, what I respect about it is that I like the like I said, the psychology and like methodology of like, getting into the mind of a serial killer. I thought that was interesting. I thought it was interesting how they framed it with actually like physically seeing his alter ego and him interacting with him. I can admit that I wish the movie was more of that. Probably would have worked a lot. Maybe would have worked a lot better for you if it was more of that stuff. The Demi Moore character could have worked better. Like, I think you need someone like that in the movie.
Have to.
But the thing is, like, she is on her own story so much throughout the entire film that it's hard for her to kind of converge with like the main story with him. And she probably should have been involved in that more. But I do respect the psychology of the movie a bit, and that's what I was into and why I enjoyed it. I don't think it's the greatest thing ever made. I never said that. But I did like I never said that. There are better. Give me Seven. Give me Silence of the Lambs. The Bone Collector. There are a lot of like really good like psychological serial killer thrillers out there, but I did at least like this for attempting something different as far as the approach, where it wasn't about like gory murders and stuff like that. It was more of a psychological, like kind of mind game a bit, and I appreciated that part of it. We felt differently about how Kevin Costner approached it. Makes me interested too. Like one day, if you're ever bored, there's a movie called The Watcher with Keanu Reeves, and he plays a serial killer. And now you know how Keanu Reeves normally acts,
Yeah.
but he plays it so calm and cool that it's almost creepy to me. So I wonder how, like, if you watch that movie, if you'd be like,
Okay.
I can't take him seriously. He just looks like Neo, or would you be like,
right.
oh, it's kind, or it's just kind of strange. But like that's how I kind of, you know, felt that Costner did it. I will say William Hurt, hands down, though, is the best performer in the movie. Sadly, he passed away like fairly recently too. He was like really, really good in the movie. You could tell that he was having a lot of fun. A lot of the other roles were kind of like thankless a bit. The daughter, it's not like she's bad, but she doesn't really have a lot to do. It's more about what's applied with her that makes her interesting. The wife, I guess, if you're looking at it from the perspective of like usually with like serial killers, like, and they're married and they have families, the wives usually have no idea what's going on, and that's really how they presented her in the movie.
She doesn't have any lines past the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, she doesn't really do much at all either. And then of course, you know, the Demi Moore character is a little half and half. And then Dane Cook, we were split on Dane Cook. I mean, Dane Cook is I thought he was good enough. I mean,
interesting casting choice. I'll say that.
You know, this is like still do this with comedians. They're like, oh, let's see, like flex your dramatic muscles and see if you're pretty good. I think he held his own.
He never did another one again. So never did another one again.
Well, he's like, well, fucking Gaius, he was never in one of these movies again. So you're wrong. All right, we're gonna give you like
I feel like Danielle Panabaker, when she first showed up, I thought it was Zoe Deutsch. Like
a little bit, yeah, she looks like her.
And then, but I feel like I haven't really seen her in too many other things. Maybe I just don't recognize her last name.
I'm gonna throw some stuff at you. It's mostly TV though.
Yeah, but I feel like she has that look for the early 2000s for sure.
Yeah. All right, so looking at some facts in the reception of the movie when it came out in 2007, it opened to $10 million and ranked number 4 at the box office. It grossed 28.5 million here in the States, and then 48.1 million worldwide on a $20 million budget. It made enough money, but probably could have done better. It received mixed reviews from critics, so it has a 55% on Rotten Tomatoes, so it's kind of down the middle. Consensus says the setup is intriguing, but Mr. Brooks overstuffs itself with twists and subplots, becoming more preposterous as it goes along. That sounds like how you kind of put it.
Yep.
As Costner and Hurt were both praised for their performances, and that and they actually, Rolling Stone wrote that the cop on the case is played by Demi Moore with a striking directness that deserved better than being saddled with an absurd backstory as an heiress with a fortune-hunting husband.
It's so true.
Audiences polled by CinemaScore when the movie opened gave the movie a B- on A+ to F scale. But over the years, though, people have like discovered it, and I think they like I think Dexter, like you mentioned earlier, stuff like that had a lot to do with why people eventually found this movie and maybe enjoyed it for what it was. Because I was surprised that it had a 7.3 out of 10 on IMDb. I thought it was gonna have a lower score. But I think that it kind of latched on to it, kind of became like where people were like, oh, I like Dexter, is there anything like similar I can watch that, you know? And I think that's when people kind of discovered it after that.
I think that like serial killer fad for sure,
right,
that people would go and rediscover it.
Right. And why this movie didn't do as well at the box office when it came out, I think that the serial killer thriller was a big thing in the late 90s, early 2000s. I think by the time this movie came out in 2007, it wasn't on a lot on the big screen anymore. I think you were getting shows and stuff that were kind of the focus of it. But in its heyday, you had like Silence of the Lambs and Seven and Hannibal, Red Dragon, The Bone Collector. There were a ton of these movies that were making money, and they were all Kiss the Girls, all released around like same time period. And I think this kind of came out like too little too late to kind of bank on that, which is why it probably didn't do as well as it could have. As far as where these people are now, I mean, you know where Kevin Costner is. He's on Yellowstone. He might be leaving. Apparently, he might be replaced with Matthew McConaughey, because Kevin Costner is one of those guys. Is like, I'm a movie guy, and we work around my schedule on TV shows. And the other people on the show are like, no. Like, this is becoming very difficult.
We have a schedule.
But I know that a lot of people watch Yellowstone. They love it. I mean, of course, Kevin Costner has been in like in a ton of movies since this and before this. I've always thought he's been such a boring actor too. I mean, like I love Field of Dreams, right? A lot of people love Field of Dreams, and like, it's a good movie, but I don't like him in it. Like, he's just he's a better director than actor.
Yeah.
And I can say that he's gotten better with age, like compared to like his early career.
He still
But
looks the same. He looks
But there's something, yeah, he does. There's just something so generic about him normally that I just don't really like all that much.
Middle-aged dude.
Demi Moore has worked off and on since this. I mean, I think after he was really big in the late 80s, 90s, and then she took a long break, and then she did some stuff in the 2000s, but she's mostly, acts when she feels like it. And, she's earned that right. She's been in a lot of like big stuff and probably doesn't need to do much anymore. Cook, I don't really know. I don't follow him that much. I think he still does stand up. I know he's dating a really young girl, or he's engaged to her.
That's like the only news that I've heard recently. I mean, I do feel bad for Dane Cook. I know that I read an article. I mean,
he's 50 now too. It's crazy.
50. He also had like almost all of his money stolen by his brother, who was his manager at the time. Like, he's had a really tough life, I think. So I feel bad for ripping on him, but like, I mean, he's a comedian. He can take it.
Yeah, I mean, he's been ripping on people for years, right?
So
there's also rumors that he stole some of his jokes from Louis C.K. I read that earlier today when I was trying to look up stuff about him. Yeah, I mean, and I remember when he was really popular, and I had friends that loved Dane Cook. It's like kind of like college frat boy humor.
Yep.
And like, I remember like being like to some stuff, like we're all being like, this dude's not funny. I don't get
he's
it.
just a dick.
Yeah, just like, he had a good run, or for a while.
Yeah.
Then Marg Helgenberger, who played wife, most people will recognize her from like CSI. She's CSI Las Vegas. She's the co-lead on that, and she's been in a ton of other movies too. But like, most people would know her from that. And then William Hurt passed away March 13th, 2022. He actually consistently
almost literally a year ago.
Wow, that was not planned, guys. Sorry. He acted pretty much consistently until he passed away for the most part. His final film appearance was in Black Widow, because he was part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe as Earl Ross. He played the role in The Incredible Hulk and in Black Widow. And he highly acclaimed actor. He had some like issues too back in the day with abuse and all that, but I think kind of one actress, Marlee Matlin, who's like a deaf actress, he's I think the only deaf actress to have won the Best Actress Oscar. She was with him at one point. They were together a long time ago, and she wrote a book where she detailed how abusive he was. But when he passed away, she had nothing but nice things to say about him. So I think, not condoning anything that he did, I think it was a very complicated relationship. And
I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, so. And then for her to like, say nice things about him when he passed, like, I guess like, probably more complicated than most of us actually knew. And we always got to mention the director, and I think I'm going to mention this because he hasn't done. Okay, he's a screenwriter and director. He is known for.
Did he write the screenplay?
So he wrote it with co-wrote Mr. Brooks with what's his name, Reynold Gideon. He also, as a director, oh god, this bud, not some, not good stuff.
Nothing good.
So he hasn't directed anything since Mr. Brooks, since 2007. But before that, he wrote Jungle to Jungle with Tim Allen. He wrote Cutthroat Island, which was like one of the biggest financial bombs ever, released in 1995. And did write. Okay, hold on, that's a good one. He wrote Stand By Me. Cool.
Okay,
that's a good one. But you have to go all the way back to 1986.
Yeah, wow, it's a long hiatus.
Long hiatus. Don't give up, man. You had some good ideas in this one.
Got a chance.
Let's flesh them out more. And as far as fun facts, we can call these fun because there's nothing serious about this one. I said that there was supposed to be a sequel. On the director's commentary, Bruce Evans said that the film was to be the first of a trilogy. As with any franchise, look at your face, Jesus! You guys wish you could see his face right now. He's just like, as with any franchise, it depended on the film's profits. Despite its minimal moderate commercials, it says there are no plans to make further films. Speaking in April 2009, Daniele Panabaker said, "Everybody wanted to make a trilogy. I saw Kevin Costner last summer, and we still would love to. The idea of my character and Kevin's character, it'd be so much fun. I think you got to see how manipulative they both are with each other. I would have loved to have done 3 of them." And then when he spoke in 2020, Evans further elaborated on what the follow-ups might have entailed. It says, oh God, I haven't read this yet. I'm reading it live right now.
Okay.
Someone would have kidnapped his family, having no idea who they were dealing with, pointing out that the kidnappers would not only be contending with the murderous Brooks, but his burgeoning psychopath of a daughter as well. Mr. Evans noted that Brooks and Marshall would have returned and have been killed by Brooks at some point in the second film. So his alter ego would have been killed in the second film, eventually being resurrected and returning angrier and more perverse than ever. Furthermore, Mr. Evans revealed that the third film, which have found Brooks and Jane at odds with one another, would have ended with Brooks killing both himself and his daughter, having realized there is no hope for either of them.
Jeez.
That's really dark, actually.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
That's super
The second
dark.
movie just sounds like Taken.
I couldn't even read that seriously. Where he was like, when they would have kidnapped them and had no idea who they were dealing with.
Yeah.
The third movie sounds interesting, though. I mean, even though it's dark, I think that would have been like maybe interesting to see like them together and like and him realizing she's too far gone.
And his alter ego comes back even more manipulative and perverse.
So I'm just gonna make you laugh some more. Earl Brooks was written with Kevin Costner in mind to play him, so he was the first and only choice for the part.
Wow.
Kevin Costner also thought the script was one of the most perfect scripts he'd ever read. There were only 3 other scripts he read that made him feel that way. After hearing this, the writers took a day off to celebrate.
Took a day off and then stopped writing the rest of it.
Reportedly, William Hurt took the role of Marshall because he loved the idea of someone going to an ad. Oh, that was interesting that he went to AA class as a cure for homicidal actions. We didn't mention that, but he does go to AA in the movie, like kind of suppress his addictions. That's what William Hurt thought of. Let's see. Zach Braff was originally cast as Mr. Smith, who Dane Cook ultimately played.
I think he would have been.
You probably would have taken him more seriously because I think Zach Braff would have played drama.
Yeah, I think he would have played it as like I wouldn't have thought he was joking about anything.
Yeah, that's true. Because in Garden State and like The Last Kiss, he could play serious a bit more than probably Dane Cook could. Speaking of Dane Cook only had to read half the script to decide he wanted to play Mr. Smith.
And he's like, I didn't read the rest of it. I didn't even practice my lines
at all. And yeah. Okay. I think that's it. There's something about the shootout. No, that's not interesting. Nothing with Demi Moore in the shootout is interesting. Yeah, that's about it on the facts. I think it's interesting that they had all these ideas for like an epic trilogy for Mr. Brooks that weren't realized because enough people didn't go see it. But yeah, I'm still gonna back it. I'm gonna back it enough to be like, yo, I recommend it. I'm gonna make it to like people who like psychological thrillers. I think it's an interesting one. At least it's that.
Weird. Like, I'm trying to think if I was gonna give it a score, and I feel like I'd have to do it out of 100. Like,
okay.
Well, because it's like out of 10. I mean, I'd have to go whatever it is, 7.3 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But like, it's weird because a D seems too harsh, but a C- seems too generous. So there's like, so it's like I don't know. I'd probably give it like a 69 or a 70 out of 100, like 6.8, maybe 6.9 out of 10.
Damn.
Yeah, it was not my I laughed more and probably said what the hell is going on more than
like you laughed at stuff you probably shouldn't have laughed at.
yeah, I was just like, what is happening here?
All right, guys. But well, we'll see how he does when
it was entertaining, and honestly, to have this discussion, it's worth seeing the movie. And yeah, everyone who's listening right now, you have to see this. Like, understand sort of, and I love to hear like your takes on what you think, like whether or not you agree with Gaius or myself, to see like first of all, just post the video of her getting launched from the van. You just have to post that.
You know what? Interesting. For this one, we've jokingly said like we want to pull a poll up and see like who had the better movie. But since this is the first one that we disagreed on, like I'm gonna pose it to you guys who are listening. Like if you've seen the movie, watch it because you listen to this. I would like to know like you kind of like thought of it from a narrative
Yeah.
standpoint. If you agreed with how like I looked at things, or if you agreed with how like Owen looked at things, that would be a really interesting thing to hear because we with characters and like certain story choices, we viewed them completely different. And like while I think got to a point where you can understand what I was thinking as far as like what they were trying to do, you still have your
Yeah.
own like kind of thought process. I'm like, yeah, I didn't quite might have been attempting that, but it didn't work for you.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So we would be very interested to hear what you
That
guys
would be great.
think
Yeah,
about that.
definitely put a poll up. I think that'd be cool to see.
Yeah. All right. So we are deep diving movies. You get to deep dive with us with 3 questions. One for Owen, one for myself, and one for both of us. I'm gonna pull this up really quick. All right. 1 second. All right. At Killer Critics on. It's a question for both of us. It's funny
Okay.
because this is kind of what's happening right now. I like listening to the show because it really feels like you're just listening to two friends riff about movies. I wanted to know if there's any friendly competition about who picked the better film each week. Uh,
Wow. I guess I don't think we're far enough in to have that
yeah.
like competition yet. I think like after I think what we should do is do it after like 10 and then 20 and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So like every 10 episodes we'll like a poll and be like, all right, who's got the best? I mean, but even then it's like we've only had 5 picks each. Like I feel like
Yeah.
that might still be maybe once we each get 10. I know that's
Then
kind
we
of
can
far
do it.
down the road, but we can
Yeah,
do
but
it or something. But
it would make more sense than I think. I get what you're trying to ask because it's like oh well he picked this last week and that was really good. Like I wonder if I have to like top that.
yeah.
I think it's in there in the sense of like we're competing. I think we are. I think we're both trying to pick stuff that we think the other person might enjoy on some level. Like
Mhm.
he didn't really like this, but like on paper, if he would maybe would have read what it was about, he might have. But I forgot he didn't really like Dexter, so like I should have like
I think
assumed
that
that
I try and pick stuff that I think we're gonna have a great conversation about too.
conversation about too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because like I can understand like why you picked this, and like after reading the synopsis, yes, it sounds interesting, but it's just the way that it was kind of made that I didn't enjoy that much. So I mean that has nothing to do with the actual pick itself, but I think that like we were saying last episode, it's like, oh, Killing Them Softly was my favorite episode so far, and then I was like, well, Better Luck Tomorrow was my
tomorrow.
favorite episode so far.
Yeah.
So it's like each one has kind of topped the last, and I think that's just sort of us finding our stride with this spinoff. But
Yeah.
so far it's like I think that I've had the better picks.
Well, well, there you go. There you have it. There's a friendly competition.
Oh.
It's also interesting too when it's like, yeah, like, is it you're picking like a really good movie, or is the focus of this like the discussion supposed to be interesting rather than like the movie they picked is supposed to be interesting? Like, we didn't agree on this, but I think the discussion about it will probably
It was
be
great.
interesting
Yeah.
because we didn't agree on like a lot of it.
Also, we realized that we should have written this movie and it would have been 100 times better.
Yeah, when I was like, maybe I should have filled in those gaps. Like, we should have written it. But yeah, that's still a good question though, because as we get in more, we'll kind of make it fun in a friendly competition to see who picked better movies.
Yep.
All right, for you, Owen, from Mike Witcher or Victor? I think it's Witcher on Twitter. Know that you had a hiatus from the podcast for a little bit. Wanted to know if it was an easy decision to come back, and you got a twofer. Was hard to get back into the swing of things of doing it.
Wow, that's a great question. Well, I think that the hardest decision was to decide to take a little bit of a break, I think.
Right.
So that was definitely one of the hardest things to just like kind of remove myself, and that was just a personal decision for me to kind of recenter myself. So
Yeah.
But like I think coming back, Gaius and I are such good friends that just having a conversation like this, it definitely wasn't hard to get back into the swing of this, especially since the focus of this show is just like one specific topic with basically what we did over the weekend and what we watched. So I think that that's a very easy transition. But yeah, like coming back and making that choice to come back, I think that if you guys have listened to the 100th episode or whatever it the 1 year anniversary.
The 1 year, yeah.
It was just Gaius asked me and I said yes, I'm in.
Yeah.
proposed
Yeah,
this idea for the spinoff.
I didn't even get to finish the thought.
Yeah, I mean, he basically just like said, "Hey, here's my idea for what would be great for you to join in on and to kind of like re-pique my interest." And I
Yeah.
said yes within like half a second. So uh, I was dying to get back in some capacity, and this has just been better than I could have imagined. Slash, like, just makes me even more uh, motivated to continue doing
No.
stuff.
Yeah,
And like I said on the last one too, I'm trying to get back and do some stuff with Jackson as well on the main show.
yeah, fun too. I think after we did the 1 year one, I think offline, you were like, "Did I do okay?" And it was like one of those things where I don't think you forget how to really do it because you're just having a conversation. But it was. I thought. I mean, I didn't feel like you were gone long when you did the 1 year one. Like it was. It
Mhm.
didn't feel like oh, this guy's rusty. Like no,
Yeah.
uh, pretty easy when you know each other. I think so.
Mhm.
It easy, and then like just figuring out how to make this show kind of what like it's crazy because like I just looked like the No Country for Old Men wasn't our first deep dive. I had the first one on our show. It was Social Network,
Social Network.
but March 24th will be a year since yours went up, and
Wow.
I think that one's more important because like it was like what kind of like the discussions about that movie that we had before we even started the podcast is kind of
Mhm.
what triggered the whole like oh like we could probably talk about this like and if we had a podcast we can do this, so that was kind of like the catalyst for it. So like
Wow. Crazy to think that was a year ago.
yeah, so it's like it's cool that we got back here and like we're able to kind of find something that works with schedule and that's easier to do because the other show is it's difficult because there's just so much like industry stuff to keep up with, and with this like you said you only have to like keep up with like what did I watch for the weekend and what did we watch for this. So like it's a lot easier to do, so but yeah, I did not miss a beat, I will
But I
second
also
that.
want to put it in, I don't want to necessarily like downplay that as well because it's like
Yeah,
yes, there's a lot to keep up with, but I mean for this, I definitely take it seriously. It's not like I'm just kind of watching a movie and like kind of throwing my ideas out there. Like
right.
I think that there's a lot of things to keep up with the main show, and that's very impressive for you and Jackson to make sure that you're covering all the hot topics and all the details. But I think for this
No,
too, I mean, it's like we got to talk for an hour and a half. We get to about a
no,
movie, and that's not always the easiest thing, I think.
no, it's not. And like I mentioned it last week when we were saying like when someone asks about like if I want to start a podcast with my friends, like what should we kind of expect or what can we do? And like you like since we started this one, like I'm 100% like prepared for it. It wasn't like you just like kind of go through the motions of like, oh, I just watched it and like you don't really like know what to talk about. So like that part's important. Like it can't work if like one person's kind of half-assing it and the other one is
Not into it.
totally not into it. So like, and this episode being a good example to have someone that watched something that he didn't really enjoy, but was able to have a conversation about like, okay, well, this is why I didn't. Let me know why you did, and maybe we meet in the middle. Maybe we still disagree. So like, I think that's a good example too of like, even if you're not into something that you're watching, you can still have a good conversation about it as well.
And also listen, you got to listen to what the other person's saying, or else it's just one-sided.
Yeah, it doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. Uh,
Well,
so for me, at Jagged Edge Productions, also on Twitter, do you like marketing the show, and is it easy? Uh, I do like it now. In the beginning, it was. I think in the beginning we would have like one episode drop, and I would like post on everything that one day, and then not post again until we had another episode. Uh, then I started. Well, he jokingly says I copied him, but like he knows it was out of love. Parker, who's like on the Release Date Rewind podcast, he's been on the show
yeah.
a few times. He posts like throughout the week. He'll drop an episode and he'll take snippets from it and like we'll just put stuff out there because he's like gains traction every day. And I noticed that and I was like, all right, well let's see if I can do that. And the last I think since we got Jackson on and then since we started this, I've been doing that on all these different platforms and you really do see the results from like everywhere that you're putting it out there. So like I like marketing it. I like it's an independent podcast. So like we talk about playlists a lot. Playlists does all the technical stuff for us, but we have to put it out there and like ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's it's starting to not feel like work. I think that's like the best part is that like
Yeah.
I'm proud of what we're doing and like it's fun to get it out there and we're getting to a point where it's like hey it can probably transition into something like really really good and we're all kind of talked about being on the same page of like okay, that's cool. When it does, like we'll have those conversations, and that's great. But I actually enjoy doing it. I like creating the clips. Playlist does some of them. I do some of them. Like creating the sound bites. Um, they're different for each show, like because each show is different. I just
I
always have
love
to
the
add.
I love the like what's the funny stuff that you do that's like the it's like a fun fact or something that's like kind of like a tangent or whatever like
Oh
when
yeah. So
I love
so
those.
so sometimes we have like just outtakes from like the show,
Yeah,
and
outtakes. Yeah.
that have nothing to do with like the episode itself, but like that was funny. Uh, I had to learn that each episode is different. Like with talking about this one specifically, promoting prisoners, Igby goes down, killing them softly,
Very different.
Tucker and Dale versus Evil were all different. Uh,
The
I
Katrina
had
Bowden having that is like
Yeah,
that was
I
sweet.
had the advantage of having that interview, and like that got shared a lot on TikTok and Instagram, so that was nice. And you get lucky sometimes with stuff like that, uh, and you just have to accept other people. Like, hey, man, you're gonna get tagged in some stuff. Is that cool? Everyone's like, yeah, it's fine. You can tag me in whatever.
Yeah.
Owen's only tagged in stuff for this show, and then Jackson's only tagged in stuff for uh, Back to Blockbuster, unless it has something to do with like charts for the show, like the show doing well, because like it's all one
Yeah.
umbrella and one team. They're not constantly bombarded with it every day, and I try to do like one for the main show one day, and then another for the spinoff the other day.
I'm cool with it. Bring it on.
It's like whatever we do to promote it, but yeah, I think once you're really proud of it, it becomes fun to market. It becomes you to think of like different ways to sell it, and that's been like the most fun for me. Like I had no idea I would do stuff on TikTok with it, but like I'm learning to. I feel like an old man talking about it this way, but like with all the kids on TikTok, it's another way for people to find it, and like it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, they're all have their own ways of like having people discover it.
Yeah.
And I I have a blast doing it. It's fun because I'm actually proud of. I think what made me feel really good is that playlist this week said, because we're recording this on a Wednesday, we're gonna release it on Monday, and I was gonna be like, hey, can we rush it out Friday? And they were like, we actually are very happy with the quality of both shows in the last like month, 2 months that you guys have like since Jackson's been on and since you guys have started the spinoff. They were like, I don't want to rush the edit and just get like an episode out on the Friday. I want it to be the best that it can be. So the fact that they're like, hey, we really like what you're doing, that
awesome.
feels good. That feels good to sell it, to all you guys listening to it.
Yeah,
that feels good.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, thanks again for the questions. Those were all really good ones. I announced on episode will have drops time you guys hear this, but Owen will be on the main show very soon.
Let's go.
Believe the week. So John Wick Chapter 4 comes out March 24th. That week, Jackson had a really good idea to have an episode that kind of looks back on not only just like the three films in general, but like how that franchise kind of changed how action films are kind of made right now. And since even though it hasn't been that long since the first one came out, like it really did influence all the action movies, I think, moving forward since it came out. Owen's a huge fan of that franchise, so he's going to be on that episode. That's also a week that his deep dive is, so I mean we'll have to work that out and figure it out. But yeah, it'll be fun. Jackson's looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. They are both a big part of the whole team, but they have never recorded together, so I think it'll be fun.
Great. I can't wait for it.
Fun one. Yeah, so look out for that one. And Owen, it's out.
Guys, thanks for listening to Back to the Blockbuster Presents Deep Dives with Owen and Gaius. Gaius and Owen, whoever you want to put first, you are more than welcome to throw them in there first. Since it was Gaius's pick this week, we'll go with Gaius and Owen. But thank you guys so much for continuing to listen. You can find us anywhere. Listen to podcasts. Like I always say, Spotify is my main go-to. But Apple Podcasts, I think, is still the one that quickly gets listened to the most. And listen to us, rate us on Good Pods, give us some reviews, feedback. Follow us on any sort of social media that you'd like to, because we're going to be, we put polls up, we put puzzles for the next episode. I guess it's always fun to just kind of see what those answers are, especially when the first puzzle is like possibly difficult, and then the last one is just an easy giveaway.
Yeah, I gotta give them something.
Yeah, so it's great. And like Gaius has been saying, huge shout out to Playlist. Their support's been amazing. Just really thankful for them for showing and seeing how great our show has become, and having the faith in us to continue to be creative and put out this awesome content for everybody. So we'll be back in a couple weeks when it is my pick, which I'm excited about. So I'm still deciding between a couple different ones, and I'll let Gaius know. And that's going to be great. I'm looking forward to continuing to do this and to be on the main show. So it's been great. Always love recording with you, buddy. So it's been a good one.
The solid one. Thank you as always for showing up. Thank you guys for listening. Peace.
Got it.